A multi-speed economic recovery is underway, reflecting the significant cross-country variations in containing the coronavirus and acquiring and administering vaccines. Sectors that had to shut down because they could not function without unsafe human-to-human proximity will soon reopen. Businesses that survived the pandemic closures will experience rapid expansion powered by pent-up demand. Growth rates will surge, at least for a limited period of time, before subsiding toward normal levels. We will enter the post-recovery world sometime in 2022. For investors, policymakers, businesses, and households alike, a major question is whether and to what extent we will return to pre-pandemic growth patterns. We will witness a shift to some markedly different set of dynamics. While there are many areas of uncertainty in the post-recovery economy, some industries seem poised for a period of extraordinarily rapid growth. Specifically, in sectors with a combination of technological possibilities, available capital, and high demand for creative new solutions, conditions will be highly favorable for investment and new company formation. Among the broad sectors with the greatest growth potential, my three leading candidates are the application of digital technologies across the entire economy, biomedical science and its applications in healthcare and beyond, and technologies that address the various challenges to sustainability, especially those associated with climate change. Elevated growth in this context means not just sector growth, but high levels of entrepreneurial activity and innovation, a plethora of new fast-growing companies, and large inflows of capital carrying high expected rates of return. These areas are distinct but overlapping because they are defined more by science and technologies than by outputs. All three are viewed as key sources of resilience for businesses and for society as a whole, and that perception has been reinforced by the pandemic and growing awareness of the effects of climate change. Between this changing outlook and the forced adoption of digital technologies during the pandemic, there is now a heightened awareness of both the opportunity and the necessity of digitalization, which is reflected in high and rising demand for technological solutions. In all three areas, many years of research and innovation have yielded powerful scientific tools and technologies that are becoming broadly available for entrepreneurs and investors who aim to tackle specific problems. At the same time, the techno-entrepreneurial ecosystems that were once concentrated in just a few places globally have expanded, resulting in an interconnected web of investors, entrepreneurs sharing insights, transferring technology, and adapting to local conditions. The startup unicorns once associated with Silicon Valley and a few other high-tech hubs can now be found in growing numbers across a wide range of developed and middle-income countries, and in surprising sectors like education. In short, the systems that unleash entrepreneurial talent are increasingly taking root around the world. This is partly because governments have recognized the opportunities in these sectors and duly stepped up their game. The fiscal programs coming out of the pandemic have been far more aggressive than in the past. Commitments to invest in infrastructure, including digital, science, and technology, are expanding, not just in the United States and China, but also in Europe, across the digital, biomedical, and green tech sectors. Moreover, policymakers seem to understand that deficient demand has negative effects not only on employment, but also on the incentives for adopting new technologies. Most governments thus are eager to ensure that the economy is running at high intensity without demand-side headwinds holding back growth and employment. Given these factors, there is a reasonable chance that the 15-year negative trend in aggregate productivity growth, and hence overall real growth, will be reversed. Powerful new general-purpose technologies are coming online, and the pandemic has increased adoption and learning in previously lagging sectors. This is crucial because productivity growth at the aggregate level requires not just widespread availability of the necessary technologies, but also broad diffusion. Particularly important is digital adoption by small and medium-sized businesses and lagging sectors. In India, part of the digital transformation involves equipping millions of small retail businesses and the related supply chains with technological solutions, as opposed to having large entities sweep them away, causing potentially massive job disruption. The distribution of income is another key factor in productivity growth. If incremental income continues to flow mainly to high-income individuals and the owners of capital, that may be good for asset prices, but it will be bad for demand and hence business investment and productivity. At least in the United States, President Joe Biden's fiscal plans, which include infrastructure investment, changes in taxation, and a higher minimum wage, are designed to restore middle-income jobs and boost incomes for low and middle-income households. As a recent study by the McKinsey Global Institute sets forth, the digital transformation may be broad enough that it will help to raise overall productivity growth very substantially. For example, innovation delivery, a previously lagging sector, such as primary health care, will likely show up not just in the productivity data for that sector, but also in other important measures of performance, including overall health outcomes and quality and timeliness of care. But what about the decarbonization agenda? Some might argue that this will have a small or even slightly negative immediate impact on growth and productivity. But especially on this issue, one should be mindful of the relevant time horizons. Whatever the short-term effects of an expanded green investment agenda, the goal is not to elevate short or even medium-term productivity. The point, rather, is to avoid or reduce the risk of a massive negative shock to productivity, among other things, in the long run. The present value of green investments thus can be very high, even if the impact on short-run flow measures of productivity is small. Let's now hear the perspective of our guest speaker and my good friend, Dr. Fred Hu from Primavera Capital. Fred, it's good to see you again. Here at Bocconi, we're having a conversation about the recovery from the pandemic, but also, importantly, about high-growth sectors and entrepreneurial activity globally. You and your colleagues at Primavera are major investors in high-growth sectors and companies. So I have two questions for you. First, how is the recovery going in China and more broadly in Asia?
First of all, great to see you, Mike. In terms of the impact of the pandemic, China was the first in, first out. The country has taken fast and decisive actions to contain and control the pandemic early on and created the conditions to allow the economy to reopen safely by the second quarter in 2020. As a result, China was the only major economy to have recorded positive GDP growth rate in 2020. China continues to lead the economic recovery here in Asia Pacific and globally, starting with the manufacturing sector, now the consumer and the service sector broadly, hence contributing to global demand. China is on track to achieve GDP growth rate of 8.5%, perhaps even higher in 2021. So very similar recovery is taking place in the rest of the Asia Pacific as well.
Very interesting. And then, what are you seeing in terms of entrepreneurial activity in your part of the world? Is my impression that there is an explosion of new company formation globally, consistent with what you are seeing?
Well, what I have been seeing in China is the resiliency, sheer energy, and dynamism in the entrepreneurial sector, where I've seen amazing new startups mushroom every day, even during the pandemic. And the young firms seized the opportunities and challenges posed by the pandemic to drive innovation, invent numerous digital technology tools, products, and applications to support businesses and the consumers hit hard by the pandemic with all the lockdowns, the social restrictions, etc., and provided a massive cushion and new stimulus to the pandemic battered economy, to enable business continuity, to enable citizens to go about their daily lives, whether work from home remotely, online shopping, digital health, or online education and digital entertainment, to basically allow daily lives a measure of normalcy and make the broader economy more flexible and resilient. So I would say entrepreneurial activities that develop and spread digital technologies quickly and widely have made a crucial difference to how societies in China and elsewhere responded and coped with the pandemic, to allow businesses and consumers to adapt to the fast-changing uncertainties and ultimately lead to the recovery we just talked about. So in the post-pandemic world, I expect entrepreneurs and the innovators to continue to play a pivotal role in developing new technologies to solve some of the world's toughest problems, be they healthcare or climate change, and to raise productivity and efficiency. They will also remain indispensable in creating new jobs and income opportunities, to reduce poverty, to create prosperity and wealth for the middle class. So I'm buoyant by the entrepreneurial activities I'm seeing here in China and across the region, and I feel optimistic about the future.
In the post-pandemic global world we are about to enter, trends that were already in motion will accelerate dramatically. Powerful digital tools now widely available for solving a huge range of problems will spread throughout the global economy. Entrepreneurs, growth companies, and supportive innovative ecosystems will lead the charge. Different from the past, where innovation ecosystems tended to be geographically concentrated, these new systems will be global in scope and impact. The digital footprints that are already high in some sectors and low in others will expand across the economy, driving productivity and growth up. Lagging sectors are key. Shocked into motion by the pandemic economy, they will move much faster to embrace digital solutions. The potential for expanded inclusive growth patterns is very real. From e-commerce to mobile payments and fintech, to health and education, there is the potential to level the playing field with respect to access to key services. Leading that charge will be energetic and imaginative and prominently young entrepreneurs. The tools and technologies that science has created in and for biomedical science are now stunningly powerful and widely available. The forecast that the next decades will be a golden age of biomedical scientific innovation and its applications no longer seems exaggerated or out of reach. Of course, we know that with all powerful new science and technology come important issues around their appropriate range of use, and hence about values, ethics, and regulation. These important issues cannot be addressed properly within the scientific and technology community alone, a point that the leaders in these fields forcefully make. We need the engagement of humanists, philosophers, social scientists, legal scholars, and educators to help set the boundaries and plot a path forward. And we seem to have finally turned the corner in terms of global commitment to live within planetary boundaries. So now the great challenge is to create the solutions. For those who wish to exercise their creative potential in contributing to solving social, environmental, human development, and welfare challenges, there has probably never been a better time to begin the journey.